I organized and spent $7,000 on the family Christmas dinner, but my daughter-in-law posted the pictures as if she had done everything. At dinner time, my son called me. "We don't want you to come. It's just for family." So I canceled everything. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from. I spent 3 weeks planning what I thought would be the most beautiful Christmas dinner our family had ever shared. At 64, I should have known better than to hope, but there I was, standing in Williams-Sonoma, spending money I couldn't really afford on the perfect centerpiece because I wanted everything to be special. $7,000. That's what I spent in total, though I didn't add it up until later when the bills came. The planning started in early November. I made lists upon lists, checking them twice like some demented Santa Claus. My grandson Tommy would be there with his new girlfriend, my son Michael with his wife Sarah, and my daughter-in-law's sister with her family. 12 people total, and I wanted each one to feel cherished. I ordered the turkey from the organic farm upstate, the same place my mother used to get ours when I was a child. 22 pounds of heritage breed bird, that cost more than some people spend on groceries in a month. But it was worth it, I told myself. Family is worth everything. The china came out of storage for the first time in 3 years. My grandmother's spode Christmas tree pattern, each piece wrapped in tissue paper and stored with the care of museum artifacts. I spent an entire afternoon washing every plate, every cup, every saucer by hand. The gold trim couldn't go in the dishwasher, and I wasn't taking any chances with pieces that held 70 years of Christmas memories. Sarah called 2 weeks before Christmas. Her voice had that sweet tone she used when she wanted something. "Phyllis, I was thinking I could help with the dinner this year. Maybe bring some side dishes or dessert." My heart actually fluttered with hope. After 5 years of marriage to Michael, Sarah had never offered to help with anything family-related. She usually spent family gatherings on her phone or making pointed comments about how old-fashioned everything was. "That would be wonderful, sweetheart," I said, and I meant it. "What did you have in mind?" "Oh, just whatever you think would be helpful. I trust your judgment completely." I should have heard the manipulation in those words, but I was too grateful for what felt like an olive branch. I spent the next hour excitedly planning how we could cook together, how this might finally be the moment Sarah and I bonded as mother and daughter-in-law. The menu took me days to finalize. Herb-crusted turkey with my secret stuffing recipe that included chestnuts and dried cranberries. Mashed potatoes made with cream and real butter, not the healthy substitutes Sarah usually insisted on. Green bean casserole from scratch, because the canned version wasn't good enough for my family. Sweet potato souffle with mini marshmallows that would make Tommy smile, the way he had as a little boy. And pies, pumpkin, apple and pecan, all made from recipes my mother had taught me. I hired a cleaning service to deep clean the house. Every corner, every surface had to be perfect. The dining room hadn't looked so elegant since my husband Robert passed away 4 years ago. I polished the silver myself, my hands cramping as I worked each piece until it gleamed. The shopping trips were exhausting but exhilarating. Fresh flowers for every room. Candles and mercury glass holders that caught the light like tiny stars. New hand towels for the guest bathroom with subtle gold threading that matched the china. I even bought a new tablecloth, ivory linen with delicate embroidered holly leaves around the border. 3 days before Christmas, I started the prep work. Pie crusts made and frozen. Stock simmering on the stove for gravy that would be silky smooth. The house filled with the scents of butter, vanilla, and cinnamon. This was what Christmas was supposed to smell like, feel like. Michael stopped by that Thursday evening. He looked around the dining room where I was setting up the place cards I'd hand-lettered in gold ink. "Mom, this looks incredible. You've really outdone yourself." The pride in his voice made every aching muscle worth it. This was my son, my only child, and I wanted him to be proud of the home he grew up in. I wanted his wife to finally understand that I wasn't the old-fashioned burden she seemed to think I was. "I want everyone to feel special," I told him, adjusting a napkin ring that didn't need adjusting. "It's been too long since we've all been together for a proper Christmas." He hugged me then, and for a moment I felt like I had my little boy back. The one who used to help me set the table when he was 6, standing on a chair to reach the plates, so serious about getting everything just right. Sarah arrived Friday morning with 3 grocery bags and an apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry I couldn't help more with the planning," she said, setting the bags on my kitchen counter. "Work has been absolutely crazy." But I brought ingredients for a few things I can whip up tomorrow. I peeked into the bags. Store-bought pie crusts, canned cranberry sauce, frozen vegetables. My heart sank a little, but I pushed the feeling away. She was trying, and that's what mattered. That's perfect, dear. We can work together in the morning. She smiled that bright smile that never quite reached her eyes. Actually, I was hoping I could just take some photos of everything once it's all set up. For my Instagram. My followers love seeing family traditions. Something cold settled in my stomach, but I nodded. Of course. I'd be honored. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed going over every detail, every possible thing that could go wrong. The turkey cooking time, the timing of the sides, whether I had enough wine, whether the house was warm enough, whether Sarah would finally see that I wasn't her enemy. I got up at 5 in the morning on Christmas Eve, even though dinner wasn't until 3. There was so much to do, and I wanted everything perfect. The turkey went into the oven at 9, and the house began to fill with that golden, rich smell that meant Christmas. Sarah arrived at noon with her camera, taking photos of every dish as I finished it. She posed by the stove, by the dining table, even by the flower arrangements. I was too busy cooking to pay much attention, but I was happy she seemed excited about documenting our family Christmas. "This is going to be amazing, Phyllis," she said, snapping another photo. "Just absolutely perfect." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. After years of feeling like she merely tolerated me, it seemed like we were finally connecting. This was going to be the Christmas that brought our family together. How could I have known that in less than 24 hours, everything I worked for would be destroyed by a single phone call? Christmas morning should have been magical. Instead, I woke up to my phone buzzing with notifications I didn't understand. Text after text from neighbors, friends from church, even my hairdresser. All saying the same thing. Saw Sarah's Christmas post. How wonderful. My hands trembled as I opened Instagram for the first time in months. I barely knew how to use the app. Tommy had set up the account for me last year, insisting I needed to stay connected with family. I rarely posted anything, preferring phone calls to social media. But there it was. Post after post on Sarah's account, each one making my blood run colder. The first photo showed my dining room table, perfectly set with my grandmother's china, my hand-lettered place cards, my carefully arranged centerpiece. The caption read, "Spent weeks planning our family Christmas dinner. So excited to host everyone in our tradition." Our tradition. Our dinner. I scrolled down, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. There was Sarah in my kitchen, posing next to the turkey I'd been basting since dawn. Up since 5 a.m. prepping this beauty. Heritage breed turkey with my secret herb rub. My secret herb rub. The one my mother taught me that her mother taught her. Photo after photo, each one more devastating than the last. Sarah stirring my gravy, Sarah arranging my flowers, Sarah placing my homemade pies on the cooling rack. Every caption written as if she had done everything herself. 3 weeks of planning, $7,000 of my money, 70 years of family recipes, all credited to my daughter-in-law. The comments were the worst part. Hundreds of them. "Sarah, you're such an amazing hostess. Goals. Wish I had your cooking skills. Lucky Michael to have such a talented wife. You put Martha Stewart to shame. How do you do it all?" And Sarah's responses, each one a knife in my heart. Thank you. I just love creating special moments for family heartsuit. It's all about the love you put into it. Cooking runs in my family, passed down through generations. Passed down through generations. My generations. My recipes that my mother had taught me at this very stove, that I'd planned to teach Tommy's girlfriend someday. I sat on my kitchen floor in my nightgown, phone in my shaking hands, surrounded by the remnants of my Christmas preparations. The turkey was resting, the sides were warming, the table was set for 12. Everything was ready for the family dinner that Sarah had just claimed as her own creation. My phone rang. Michael's name on the screen. "Mom, I just saw Sarah's posts. Everything looks incredible. We'll be there in a couple hours." "Michael," I started, my voice hoarse. "Did you see what she wrote?" "Yeah, she's really excited about Christmas this year. It's nice to see her getting into the family spirit." You know? He hadn't understood. He thought Sarah was just excited, not stealing credit for everything I'd done. She's saying she planned everything. She's saying she cooked everything. A pause. Mom, what's wrong? You sound upset. I spent $7,000 on this dinner, Michael. I've been planning for 3 weeks. Those are my recipes, my grandmother's china mai. Mom, please don't make this about money. It's Christmas. Sarah's just excited to be part of the family traditions. Part of the family traditions. Not stealing them. Not erasing me from them completely. I hung up and called my neighbor Dorothy, whose granddaughter followed Sarah on Instagram. Oh honey, Dorothy said after I explained. Emma showed me those posts last night. We thought it was odd because we all know how hard you've been working on Christmas dinner. That girl has some nerve. At least someone else could see it. I wasn't going crazy. I called my sister in Phoenix. Margaret answered on the 3rd ring. Phyllis. Merry Christmas. How's your big dinner coming along? When I told her about the posts, the silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. That little witch, Margaret finally said. After everything you've done for that family, have you talked to Michael? He doesn't see it. He thinks she's just being enthusiastic. Men can be blind as bats when it comes to their wives' manipulation. What are you going to do? I didn't know. What could I do? Demand she take down the posts? Insist she correct the record? Tell my entire family that their Christmas hostess was a fraud? The doorbell rang at noon. Sarah breezed in wearing a red dress I'd never seen before, carrying a small gift bag and that same bright smile. Merry Christmas, Phyllis. Everything smells absolutely divine. I stared at her. This woman who had just stolen 3 weeks of my life and credited it to herself for the internet to see. She looked so pleased with herself, so satisfied. I saw your Instagram posts, I said carefully. Her smile never wavered. Oh good. I tagged the location so people know where to find such a beautiful venue for their own gatherings. I thought it might help promote the house for when you decide to downsize. Promote the house. For when I decide to downsize. As if this was already decided. As if my home was already hers to market. Sarah, those posts make it sound like you planned and cooked everything. She tilted her head, the picture of innocence. Well, I did help with the shopping and some of the prep work. I thought it would be nice to share our family celebration with my followers. They love seeing real, authentic moments. Authentic moments. Nothing about those posts was authentic. But you didn't mention that I planned the menu or bought everything, or that these are my family recipes. A flicker of something cold passed through her eyes before the smile returned. Phyllis, I think you're reading too much into it. Social media is just about sharing pretty pictures. No one really cares about the details. No one cares about the details. My life's work, my family's history, my grandmother's recipes. Just details that no one cares about. Besides, she continued, checking her phone, I'm getting so many sweet comments. People love seeing family traditions being passed down to the next generation. Passed down to the next generation. As if I was already dead and gone. As if she was the new matriarch carrying on traditions that she had stolen and claimed as her own. I watched her walk into my dining room, straightening a napkin here, adjusting a flower there, posing for another selfie with my perfectly set table in the background. And I realized with crystal clarity that this wasn't enthusiasm or excitement about family traditions. This was erasure. This was Sarah systematically removing me from my own family's Christmas story, one Instagram post at a time. The worst part wasn't the theft itself. It was knowing that in 2 hours, my entire family would sit down at my table, eat my food, and thank Sarah for the wonderful meal she had prepared. And I would sit there, watching them praise her for my work, unable to say anything without seeming petty and jealous. Or so I thought. I had no idea that in just 3 hours, everything would change in a way I never could have imagined. At 2:30 minutes before everyone was supposed to arrive, my phone rang. Michael's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer. I was in the middle of making gravy and the timing had to be perfect. But something in my gut told me to pick up. Hi sweetheart, are you on your way? I asked, stirring the pan with one hand while balancing the phone with the other. Mom, we need to talk. The tone in his voice made me stop stirring. Cold. Distant. The same voice he'd used when he was 16 and got caught sneaking out, except now he was 38 and I was the one in trouble. What's wrong? Is everything okay? Sarah and I have been talking, and we've decided to have Christmas dinner at our place instead. I felt the wooden spoon slip from my fingers. It clattered against the stovetop, gravy splattering across the burner. What do you mean? Everyone's coming here in 30 minutes. The dinner is ready. We know it's last minute, but Sarah really wants to host this year. She's been so excited about creating new traditions for our family. New traditions? For their family. The words hit me like a physical blow. Michael, I've spent $7,000 on this dinner. Everything is cooked. The table is set. Your grandmother's china is out. Mom, please don't make this about money again. It's just dinner. Just dinner. 3 weeks of planning, sleepless nights worrying about every detail. Money I couldn't afford to spend just dinner. I don't understand. Sarah was just here an hour ago. She didn't say anything about changing plans. She didn't want to upset you. We thought it would be easier to just call and explain. Easier? For who? Michael, this doesn't make sense. What about all the food? What about everyone who's expecting to come here? We'll figure it out. Maybe you can freeze some of it. Freeze some of it. A 22-pound heritage turkey, homemade pies, 3 different vegetable dishes. Just freeze some of it like leftovers from a failed dinner party. Who's we? Who else knows about this? Silence. Long, horrible silence that told me everything I needed to know. Michael, who else knows? Everyone's already at our house, Mom. The world tilted. I gripped the kitchen counter to keep from falling. Everyone's there? Right now. We sent out a group text this morning. We thought you saw it. I grabbed my phone with shaking fingers, scrolling through my messages. There it was, sent at 9:15 this morning while I was basting the turkey. A group message to the whole family from Sarah's phone. Change of plans. Christmas dinner moved to our house at 3 p.m. See you all there. Heartsuit. Everyone had responded. Tommy. Cool, see you there. Sarah's sister. Perfect, thanks for hosting. Michael's cousin. Can't wait. No one had questioned why the location changed. No one had asked about me. No one had thought to call and check if I was okay with this. Mom? Are you there? I'm here. My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from underwater. Look, why don't you pack up some of the food and come over? There's always room for one more. Room for one more. At my own family's Christmas dinner. Like I was some distant relative being grudgingly included. One more what, Michael? What do you mean? You said there's room for one more. One more what? Another pause. Mom, you're being weird. Just come over if you want to. If I want to. As if attending my family's Christmas dinner was optional. As if my presence was merely tolerated, not expected or desired. Michael, I need you to understand something. I planned this entire dinner. I spent 3 weeks preparing. I bought all the food, cooked everything, set the table with my grandmother's china. And now you're telling me that not only am I not hosting Christmas dinner, but I'm being invited as a guest to eat my own food at someone else's house. Sarah just wanted to contribute more to the family traditions, Mom. She's been feeling left out. Sarah feeling left out. Sarah, who had never offered to help with anything until yesterday. Sarah, who spent every family gathering on her phone or making comments about how everything was old-fashioned. Sarah was feeling left out. And what about me, Michael? How do you think I feel? You're being dramatic. It's just a change of venue. Just a change of venue. As if Christmas dinner was a business meeting that could be moved to a different conference room. Where did Sarah get the food to feed 12 people on 30 minutes notice? Silence again. Michael. She's been planning this for a few days. She wanted it to be a surprise. The truth hit me like ice water. This wasn't a last-minute decision. This was planned. Sarah had been in my kitchen yesterday, watching me cook, taking photos of my food, knowing the entire time that she was going to steal not just the credit but the actual dinner itself. She's been planning to steal my Christmas dinner. Mom, don't be ridiculous. She just wanted to help create a nice experience for everyone. By excluding me from my own family's Christmas? You're not excluded. We just told you to come over. After everyone else was already there. After you moved my dinner to her house. After you made me the last to know about my own family's Christmas plans. Look, I don't have time for this drama right now. Everyone's waiting for me to help serve dinner. Are you coming or not? Drama. My devastation at being erased from my own family's Christmas was drama. I looked around my kitchen. The turkey I'd risen at 5 a.m. to prepare. The pies cooling on the rack that had taken me hours to make. The dining room where my grandmother's china gleamed under the chandelier. Set for 12 people who would never come. No, Michael. I'm not coming. What do you mean you're not coming? It's Christmas. You made it very clear that this is Sarah's Christmas now. She can have it. Mom, you're being childish. Childish. 64 years old. And my son was calling me childish for being hurt that my family had abandoned me on Christmas. Tell me something, Michael. When you were growing up, did I ever exclude you from Christmas? Did I ever move your Christmas dinner to someone else's house without telling you? That's different. How is it different? Because you're the parent. You're supposed to be the bigger person here. The bigger person. Even when I was being betrayed and humiliated, I was supposed to be the bigger person. Even when my own son chose his wife's manipulation over his mother's feelings, I was supposed to smile and pretend it was fine. You know what, Michael? You're right. I am the parent, which means I taught you better than this. I taught you to treat people with respect and kindness. I obviously failed. Don't turn this into some guilt trip about my childhood. This isn't about your childhood. This is about who you've become as an adult. And right now, I don't like the man you've become. The words hung in the air between us. I'd never said anything like that to my son before. I never even thought it. But in that moment, staring at my empty dining room and my wasted Christmas dinner, I meant every word. Fine. Don't come then. But don't blame me when you're sitting alone on Christmas, because you couldn't put aside your pride for one day. And then he hung up. I stood in my kitchen, phone in my hand, surrounded by the ruins of what was supposed to be the perfect Christmas. The gravy had burned while we were talking. The smell of it filled the air, acrid and bitter. For the first time in my 64 years, I was completely alone on Christmas. Not because I was sick, not because of weather or travel problems, but because my own family had decided they didn't want me there. I walked into the dining room and looked at the table I'd set so carefully. 12 place settings for a dinner party of one. The centerpiece I'd spent an hour arranging looked ridiculous now, like I was playing house in an empty dollhouse. I picked up my phone again, scrolling through the group chat. While Michael and I had been arguing, new messages had appeared. Photos from Sarah's house. My turkey carved and served on her plates. My side dishes arranged on her table. My family laughing and eating and celebrating Christmas without me. The caption on Sarah's latest Instagram post made me gasp out loud. So grateful for the opportunity to start new family traditions. Nothing beats a home-cooked Christmas dinner made with love. Made with love. By me. In my kitchen. With my money. But as I stood there in my empty house, still wearing the apron I put on at dawn to cook a dinner no one wanted, I realized something that surprised me. I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry. And for the first time in my life, I was going to do something about it. The first call came at 6:15. I was sitting in my living room, still in my Christmas dress, eating a slice of pecan pie straight from the pan. The turkey sat untouched on the kitchen counter, perfect and golden and completely wasted. My phone buzzed against the coffee table, Michael's name lighting up the screen. I let it ring. The second call came 5 minutes later. Then the third. By 7 o'clock, my phone showed 8 missed calls from Michael and 3 from Sarah. I turned the ringer off and took another bite of pie. At 7:30, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Michael's car in my driveway, Sarah in the passenger seat. They sat there for 10 minutes, ringing the bell every few minutes like I might not have heard it the first 12 times. I stayed in my chair and finished my pie. The texts started after they left. First from Michael. Mom, we know you're in there. Why won't you answer the door? This is ridiculous. We're family. Sarah feels terrible about the misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. As if stealing my Christmas dinner and excluding me from my own family gathering was some kind of communication error. Then from Sarah. Phyllis, I think there's been a miscommunication about today. Can we talk? I never meant for you to feel left out. That wasn't my intention at all. Michael is really upset. We just want to make this right. I set my phone aside and went to the kitchen to put away the food that would never be eaten. 22 pounds of perfectly cooked turkey. Enough mashed potatoes to feed a small army. 3 pies that had taken me all day yesterday to make. As I wrapped everything in foil and Tupperware, I thought about the $7,000 I'd spent, the credit card bill that would come in January, the money I'd saved for months, skipping dinners out and buying generic groceries, all so I could give my family the perfect Christmas. The perfect Christmas they'd stolen and served without me. My phone buzzed again. A group text this time from Tommy. Grandma, where are you? Dad said you weren't feeling well, but your car is in the driveway. Not feeling well. That's what Michael had told everyone. That I was sick. Not that they'd excluded me from my own family's Christmas dinner. I typed back. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired. Can I come see you? I brought your present. My heart clenched. Tommy was 22, just graduated from college, probably confused about why his grandmother wasn't at Christmas dinner. He didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this. Not tonight, honey. But thank you for thinking of me. More calls. Sarah now, her number flashing repeatedly. I watched it ring and ring, then go to voicemail. She called back immediately. Then again. At 9 o'clock, my neighbor Dorothy knocked on the door. Phyllis? I saw all the cars earlier. Is everything okay? I opened the door, and Dorothy took one look at my face and stepped inside without being invited. What happened, honey? So I told her. Everything. The Instagram post, the stolen credit, the last-minute exclusion, the phone call that changed everything. Dorothy listened with the kind of focused attention that only comes from 70 years of friendship. That manipulative little snake, she said when I finished. And Michael just went along with it? I nodded, suddenly exhausted. What are you going to do? I don't know. What can I do? They made their choice. Dorothy patted my hand. Sometimes the best thing you can do is nothing at all. Let them sit with what they've done. After she left, I turned my phone back on. 42 missed calls. 42. The voicemails were a progression of panic. Michael, 6 p.m. Mom, call me back. We need to talk about this. Michael, 6:30. Seriously, this silent treatment is childish. Pick up the phone. Sarah, 7 p.m. Phyllis, I'm really concerned about you. Please call us back. Michael, 7:15. Mom, everyone's asking where you are. This is embarrassing. Embarrassing. My absence was embarrassing, but my exclusion wasn't. Sarah, 7:45. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I never meant to hurt your feelings. Michael, 8 p.m. Tommy's asking questions. What am I supposed to tell him? The truth, I thought. You could try telling him the truth. Sarah, 8:30. We saved you a plate. Everything was delicious. Everything was delicious. My food, cooked in my kitchen, served at her table, was delicious. Michael, 9 p.m. Fine. If you want to ruin Christmas for everyone, that's your choice. Ruin Christmas. I had ruined Christmas by being hurt that they'd stolen it from me. The last voicemail was from Sarah, left at 9:45. Phyllis, I'm really worried about you. If you don't call back soon, we're going to have to do a wellness check. We can't have you alone on Christmas night when you're clearly not thinking clearly. A wellness check. They were threatening to call the police to check on me because I wouldn't answer their calls after they'd excluded me from Christmas dinner. I sat in my living room, surrounded by the remnants of my perfect Christmas, and laughed. Not a happy laugh, but the kind of laugh that comes when you realize you've been living in a different reality than everyone else. They thought I was being dramatic. They thought I was throwing a tantrum. They had no idea that something fundamental had shifted in me when Michael told me I wasn't wanted at my own family's Christmas. For 64 years I had been the one who smoothed things over. The one who apologized first, who bent over backward to keep peace in the family. The one who put everyone else's needs before my own. Not anymore. I picked up my phone and typed a single text to the family group chat. I am fine. I will not be responding to calls or texts tonight. Enjoy your new traditions. Then I turned off my phone completely. The house felt different in the silence. Not empty, peaceful. For the first time in weeks, I didn't have to worry about pleasing anyone. I didn't have to smile when I was hurt or pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. I made myself a cup of tea and sat in Robert's chair, the one I rarely used because it still smelled like his aftershave. Looking around the living room, I noticed things I'd forgotten in all my Christmas preparations. The photo of Robert and me on our wedding day. The books I'd been meaning to read. The cross-stitch project I'd started last winter and never finished. My life. My actual life, Not the performance of life I'd been putting on for my family. The phone rang one more time around 11 p.m. I could see it lighting up on the kitchen counter where I'd left it, but I didn't move. Let it ring. Let them wonder. Let them experience for just one night what it felt like to be ignored by someone they thought they could take for granted. As I got ready for bed, I caught sight of myself in the bathroom mirror. Still in my Christmas dress, my makeup smudged from the tears I'd cried earlier. But something in my face had changed. Something in my eyes looked different. I looked like a woman who had finally learned the power of the word no. Tomorrow they would try again. They would call and text and probably show up at my door with apologies and explanations and demands that I forgive and forget. They would tell me I was overreacting, that it wasn't that bad, that family is more important than hurt feelings. But I had learned something today that I wished I'd learned decades ago. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing at all. Let them call 42 times. Let them panic and worry and realize that I wasn't going to chase after them anymore. Let them understand, perhaps for the first time, that their actions had consequences. I turned off the lights and went to bed, and for the first time in months, I slept deeply and dreamlessly, undisturbed by the weight of other people's expectations. I woke up on December 26 to the sound of my doorbell ringing insistently. Through the bedroom window, I could see Michael's car in my driveway again, but this time he was alone. I took my time getting dressed, brushing my teeth, making coffee. Let him wait. When I finally opened the door, he looked terrible. His hair was disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed, and he was wearing the same clothes from yesterday. "Mom, we need to talk." "Do we?" I kept my hand on the door, not inviting him in. "Please. I've been up all night thinking about what happened." Something in his voice was different. Not demanding, not frustrated. Defeated. I stepped aside and let him in, but I didn't offer him coffee or ask him to sit down. He stood awkwardly in my living room, taking in the dining room where the table was still set for 12, the plates now gathering dust. "I talked to Tommy last night," he said finally. "After you didn't respond to any of our calls." I waited. "He asked me point-blank why you weren't at dinner. So I told him what Sarah told me to say. That you weren't feeling well and decided to stay home. And..." Michael ran his hands through his hair. "He said that was impossible. He said he'd texted with you that morning and you were excited about hosting everyone. He said you'd never miss Christmas dinner unless something was seriously wrong." I still said nothing. So then I had to tell him the truth. About the change of plans, about Sarah wanting to host instead. And what did Tommy say to that? Michael's face crumpled slightly. He asked me if I was insane. He said you'd been planning this dinner for weeks, that you'd spent a fortune on it, and that it was the cruelest thing he'd ever heard. Good for Tommy. At least one person in my family had some sense. Then Sarah's sister started asking questions. She wanted to know where all the food came from, since Sarah had told everyone she'd been cooking all day. But Jessica remembered Sarah being at the mall until 2 o'clock yesterday, shopping for a new dress. I felt a small spark of vindication, but I kept my expression neutral. And then Mrs. Henderson from next door came over. My stomach dropped. Betty Henderson was Sarah's neighbor, an elderly woman who saw everything from her kitchen window. What did Mrs. Henderson want? She wanted to thank Sarah for the delicious meal. She said she could smell the turkey cooking at Sarah's house all day Christmas Eve and Christmas morning, and she was impressed that Sarah had gotten up so early to start cooking. I raised an eyebrow. And Sarah got flustered. She started talking about how she'd actually prepared most of the food at your house and just transported it over. But Mrs. Henderson said that was impossible because she'd been watching, and the only food that came from your house was what I carried over in those containers after our phone call. The web was unraveling. Tommy asked to see Sarah's Instagram posts, the ones where she claimed she'd planned everything and cooked everything. Michael sat down heavily on my couch without being invited. "Mom, I never actually looked at them before. I just assumed she was sharing photos of our family dinner. And when you looked?" She claimed credit for everything. "Your recipes, your planning, your decorations. Everything." She made it look like she'd done it all herself. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee, taking my time. When I came back, Michael was staring at the dining room table. "I never realized how much work you put into these dinners," he said quietly. The table setting, the decorations, even the way you fold the napkins. She just took it all. Yes, she did. Tommy was furious. He said Sarah has been doing this kind of thing for years, taking credit for other people's work. He said he's seen her do it at his office parties, claiming she made desserts that she obviously bought from a bakery. I wasn't surprised. People like Sarah don't change their behavior overnight. He also said something else. Michael looked up at me. His eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in years. Shame. He said he couldn't believe I'd let my wife treat my mother that way. He said if I couldn't see what Sarah was doing to our family, then I wasn't the man he thought I was. Out of the mouths of babes. When I got home last night, I confronted Sarah about the posts. I asked her to explain why she claimed credit for everything you'd done. And what did she say? She said it wasn't a big deal. That social media posts don't matter, that it was just for fun. She said you were being oversensitive, and that I was letting you manipulate me. Classic Sarah. When caught in a lie, attack the people calling you out. But then Jessica, Sarah's sister, spoke up. She said she'd been wondering all day where Sarah had learned to cook so well, since she'd never shown any interest in cooking before. She said the food was too good to be something Sarah had just thrown together. I felt another small surge of satisfaction. And then the worst part. Michael's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Sarah started laughing. She said it didn't matter what any of us thought, because she'd already gotten hundreds of likes and comments praising her cooking skills. She said she'd probably get invited to host more dinner parties because of how impressed everyone was. There it was. The truth finally coming out. She was proud of it, Mom. Proud of stealing your Christmas and taking credit for all your work. She said you'd never do anything about it anyway because you're too nice. Too nice. Sarah had counted on my niceness, my unwillingness to cause family drama, my tendency to always be the bigger person. That's when Tommy lost it. He told Sarah she was despicable, and that he was ashamed to be related to her. He said if I didn't fix this, he was done with both of us. I felt a fierce surge of love for my grandson, 22 years old and more of a man than his father had been in this situation. Jessica agreed with Tommy. She said what Sarah did was theft, plain and simple. She said she'd never seen anything so cruel and calculated. Michael was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. I tried to defend her at first. I said she was just excited about being part of the family traditions. But Tommy asked me a question that I couldn't answer. What question? He asked me when was the last time I'd called you just to talk. When was the last time I'd visited you without needing something? When was the last time I treated you like you mattered to me? The question hung in the air between us. I knew the answer and so did Michael. I couldn't remember, Mom. I couldn't remember the last time I treated you like anything more than an obligation. Finally, he was seeing it. Sarah left this morning. She said she wasn't going to stay in a house where everyone was against her. She said I had to choose between her and my family. I felt my breath catch. And I told her the choice was easy. She could leave. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt tears prick my eyes. Not tears of sadness but tears of relief. She's staying at her sister's for now. She wants me to apologize to her and make everyone else apologize too. She says she won't come back until the whole family admits they overreacted. I almost laughed. Even after being caught red-handed, Sarah was still playing the victim. What are you going to do? I asked. Michael looked up at me, and for a moment I saw the little boy who used to help me set the table, who used to tell me I was the best cook in the world. I'm going to divorce her, Mom. I should have done it years ago. Tommy was right. I've been letting her poison our family, and I've been too blind to see it. I sat down across from him, processing this information. Are you sure? Marriage is serious, Michael. So is family. And I almost lost my real family because I was too stupid to see what she was doing to us. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Finally, Michael spoke again. There's something else. Something I found out this morning. I waited. I called the catering company that provided the flowers for our wedding. Sarah had told me she'd arranged everything herself, but I wanted to check something. He paused. Mom, she did the same thing at our wedding. She took credit for all the planning that the wedding coordinator did. She posted photos claiming she designed everything herself. The pattern went back years. How many other times, do you think? I asked. I don't know. But I'm starting to remember things. Dinner parties where she claimed she'd made dishes that I knew came from restaurants. Work events where she took credit for decorations that other people had obviously done. My son was finally seeing his wife clearly, and it was devastating and liberating at the same time. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for everything. For choosing her over you, for not seeing what she was doing, for letting her steal your Christmas. I reached across and took his hand. You see it now. That's what matters. Can you forgive me? I looked at my son, really looked at him. The man who had hurt me more deeply than anyone ever had, but who was also the little boy I'd raised to be better than this. We have a lot to rebuild, Michael. But yes, I can forgive you. For the first time in 5 years, my son hugged me like he meant it. And for the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was getting my family back. 6 months later, I hosted Easter dinner. But this time, everything was different. The guest list was smaller. Just Michael, Tommy's girlfriend Emma, and my neighbor Dorothy, who had become like family over the winter months. No Sarah, who was now living in another state after the divorce was finalized. No extended family members who had proven themselves fair-weather relatives during the Christmas crisis. But it was perfect in a way that my Christmas dinner never could have been, because everyone at my table genuinely wanted to be there. Michael arrived early to help with the preparations, something he hadn't done since he was a teenager. We worked side by side in the kitchen, and I taught him how to make my mother's dinner rolls, the recipe I'd never shared with Sarah despite her requests. Why didn't you ever teach me this before? He asked, kneading the dough with the careful attention of someone learning something precious. You never asked, I said simply. You were always too busy. And then Sarah always had opinions about everything being too old-fashioned. He was quiet for a moment. I was an idiot. You were under a spell, I corrected. There's a difference. Tommy brought Emma over an hour before dinner, and I watched as she genuinely admired the table I'd set with my grandmother's china. Not for photographs, not for social media, but because she appreciated the care that went into creating something beautiful. Mrs. Phyllis, Tommy told me about your Christmas recipes. Would you maybe teach me some of them sometime? I'd love to learn. The request was so genuine, so different from Sarah's manipulative attempts to extract my recipes for her own use, that I felt tears prick my eyes. I would love that, sweetheart. Dorothy arrived with her famous coconut cake, the one she'd been perfecting for 60 years. We'd grown closer over the past few months, bonding over our shared experiences of being taken for granted by family members who thought we'd always be there. You look different, she told me as we arranged the food on the dining room table. Happier. She was right. I did feel different. The constant anxiety I'd carried for years, the need to please everyone, to smooth over every conflict, to make everyone else comfortable at the expense of my own peace was gone. In its place was something I'd almost forgotten, contentment. During dinner, Tommy raised his glass. I want to make a toast to Grandma. To the woman who taught me that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Michael added. And to the woman who raised me better than I was acting. I'm sorry it took me so long to remember. Emma, bless her heart, said. And to the woman who's teaching me that real family traditions aren't about perfect Instagram posts, they're about love and respect and showing up for each other. Dorothy finished. And to my dear friend, who finally learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop letting people hurt you. As we ate, Michael told us about his new apartment, the first place he'd lived alone since college. It's small, but it's mine. No one there to tell me that my books are cluttering the living room, or that my cooking smells are too strong. I felt a pang of sadness for him. For all of Sarah's manipulation, he had genuinely loved her at one point. Divorce is painful, even when it's necessary. Are you happy? I asked him. He considered the question seriously. I'm getting there. Therapy helps. And spending time with people who actually like me helps too. Tommy had started coming by every Sunday for dinner, a tradition we'd established after New Year's. He was teaching me how to use Instagram properly, helping me share photos of my cooking and my garden with captions that were honest and unpretentious. Look at this, he said, showing me his phone. Your post about the Easter lamb cake got 300 likes. People love your recipes, Grandma. It was strange, having strangers appreciate my cooking more than my own daughter-in-law ever had. But it was also validating in a way I hadn't expected. After dinner, as we sat around the living room with coffee and Dorothy's coconut cake, Emma asked, "What happened to Sarah? I mean, if you don't mind me asking." Michael and I exchanged glances. We'd agreed to be honest about what had happened, but without being vindictive. "She's living in California now," Michael said. "She got a job with a lifestyle blog, actually, writing about entertaining and cooking." The irony wasn't lost on any of us. "Does she still take credit for other people's work?" Tommy asked bluntly. "I don't know," Michael said. "I hope she's learned something from all this, but I'm not holding my breath." I found that I didn't really care what Sarah was doing anymore. For months after Christmas I'd been angry, then hurt, then angry again. But somewhere along the way, I'd realized that holding on to anger about Sarah was like drinking poison and expecting her to get sick. "The important thing," I said, "is that we learn something about ourselves, about what we're willing to accept and what we're not." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "My mom always says that people can only treat you as badly as you let them." Smart woman, Emma's mother. As the evening wound down and everyone prepared to leave, Michael lingered behind. "Mom, I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" "I want to learn more of your recipes. Not just the dinner rolls, but all of them. The ones Grandma taught you, the ones you created yourself. I want to make sure they don't get lost." My heart swelled. I'd like that very much. And I was thinking, maybe we could write them down together. Make a family cookbook. Not for publishing or anything, just for us. For Tommy and Emma and any kids they might have someday. The idea took my breath away. A family cookbook, filled with stories and recipes and memories. Something real and lasting. Not like Sarah's fake Instagram posts that would disappear into the digital void. That sounds wonderful. We could include photos too. Of you cooking, of the finished dishes. Real photos, not staged ones. I hugged my son, marveling at how much he'd changed since Christmas. Not just in how he treated me, but in how he saw himself. The divorce had been painful, but it had also freed him to become the man I'd always known he could be. After everyone left, I stood in my dining room, looking at the table where my grandmother's china was arranged for 6 instead of 12. It looked perfect. Not because everything was elaborate or expensive, but because it had been used to bring together people who cared about each other. I thought about Christmas, about the dinner that had cost me $7,000 and broken my heart. At the time it had felt like the worst thing that had ever happened to me, but now I could see it differently. Sarah's betrayal hadn't destroyed my family. It had revealed what my family really was underneath all the pretense and obligation. It had forced Michael to choose between enabling manipulation and having authentic relationships. It had shown Tommy the difference between real love and performative affection. Most importantly, it had taught me that I didn't have to accept being treated badly in the name of keeping the peace. That saying no wasn't selfish, it was self-respect. That sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who respect you the least. My phone buzzed with a text from Tommy. "Thanks for dinner, Grandma. Love you." Then Emma. "Thank you for welcoming me into your family. Can't wait for our next cooking lesson." Then Dorothy. "What a lovely evening. Same time next week for Sunday dinner." And finally Michael. "Thank you for not giving up on me. I love you, Mom." I turned off the lights and headed to bed, feeling lighter than I had in years. Tomorrow I would start organizing my recipes for the cookbook Michael and I were going to create. I would tend to my garden, which had flourished this spring in ways it never had when I was too stressed to care for it properly. I would call my sister Margaret, who had become a regular source of support since Christmas. I had learned something important at 64. It's never too late to stop accepting less than you deserve. It's never too late to demand respect from the people in your life. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing at all, except refuse to participate in your own diminishment. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt grateful for Sarah in a way that would have shocked me 6 months ago. Not grateful for the pain she'd caused, but grateful for the clarity that pain had brought. She had forced me to see that I'd been performing the role of the family martyr for so long that I'd forgotten I had any other choice. But I did have a choice. I'd always had a choice. And finally, at 64 years old, I was brave enough to make it.